Hey, this is Seagrove. Welcome back, and we are here today with James Arnold and Russell LaParre talking about DCE. They're going to be telling me why DCE needs to get banned. But before we get into that, let's do some introductions. Russ, you start. Russ, you were just here. You were on the last video, but I was too, so I guess it's cool. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, my name is Russell LaParre. Made day 2 like 20 plus times. Made top 8 twice. Got ninth like 3 times. Got 10th like 5 times. A lot of sadness, a lot of anger, and I'm not as big as an advocate of banning DCE as James here is. I think I can just understand it. Everything James has from his point of view. Why I semi support his decision, and why the entire thing's hilarious that's going on in Burbank.
Sure. All right, James.
Hi, everybody. My name is James Arnold. I have played Pokemon ever since the beginning. I took a break during the black and white era from going to several events or trying for an invite, but remained playing through those years. I have made day 2 a lot. I don't know. Won Virginia Regionals 2017. Top 8 at Virginia Regionals last year. Top 64 Internats last year. Various other accomplishments. And I didn't mean to start all this, but I guess we've had something to do this week. So not trying to get DCE banned, but definitely here to discuss the merits of it or not.
So I just realized I had my headphones unplugged, so they were probably getting a lot of feedback. I don't know. We'll be all right. If I have to cut out that, I'll cut it out.
Yeah.
All right. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how serious are you that DCE needs to be banned?
I mean, I am of the opinion, I just wanted to start everything off. So Sunday night, there was a lot of talk, and has been a lot of talk recently in the community about if something needs to change and expand it, if a card needs to get banned. There's been all kinds of options brought up. People say that Execute needs to go. People say that Oranguru needs to go. People say that Zoroark needs to go. I know Russell is a big fan of Zoroark himself needing to go.
I have my sarcastic post on Burbank. Like before day 2 started, just scrolling after day 1, like looking through like all the decks that made day 2 and Pokestats. I was like, it's like a whole bunch of Zoroark, 2 Shocklocks, a Buzz, a Lucario, and like random stuff. And I was like, all right, but Zoroark's not the problem. No. Let's touch something else, guys. Like this is clearly like the whole point of their entire mindset, which I completely disagreed with. I think Zoroark's stupid and expanded.
Yeah, and so people are just going back and forth on if a card needs to get banned and which card that is. And I have, for literally since Heart Gold and Soul Silver came out, been saying that double colorless energy is a problem. It is the catalyst that makes all of the other problems occur. I definitely wasn't trying to start a boycott or anything like that with my post that I made. I just wanted to express my opinion on why I believe that double colorless energy is that catalyst that makes the game toxic at certain points. And it brings out the toxicity of certain cards and has for the last 9 years. So I would absolutely be over the moon happy if double colorless energy got banned. But as I said in that post, which most people seem to have skipped over, I don't think double colorless energy will ever be banned. I don't think that it's something that necessarily has to happen or the game's going to die or anything like that. It's just, I believe that there are multiple reasons why the game would be a better place if the card did not exist.
Okay. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how serious are you about this?
I mean, 10.
10?
Let's get as serious as possible.
All right.
Let's make the game. Let's make Pokemon great again.
Okay, let's do it. So, first question: let's look at expanded. Say we ban DCE and expanded. Why is that better when, in my opinion, okay, you ban DCE and then immediately Buzzwole and Malamar take over, and Trevenant. Are those why is that better than having Zoroark on the format?
I think you're actually wrong on those decks.
Okay.
Like I don't think Buzzwole's even gonna stick around if you ban DCE because you only play Buzzwole because you can beat Zoroark, and we only rule out water, grass. Water's not even out. Sorry, Stoice is still here. So like fire, grass, like all these other decks, just because DCE decks are so strong and prominent, and that goes for so much. It's like Lost March, Night March, Zoroark decks. What happened this weekend? Connor Fenton, he played bees and Flareon. You know what that is? DCE, and they make a Gallade with Maxis. You know what Gallade uses? A DCE.
Right.
And we can go on for this for days. In terms of like how the meta is going to develop, I think, I'd say I'm not even good friends with the top players. I'm good friends with some of them. Acquaintances with others, rivals because we just don't like each other, with a few of them. But I think we're all on the same page that Expanded just needs to go. Like, it's just get out of here. The card pool is way too big, and it creates so many problems that something like DCE is just like further pressed between all the madness going on here. And I don't even know what the meta would look like if we banned DCE. Okay. I do know I had this discussion with people multiple times. Regional Pram, how about that? So if you guys know Pram, I've definitely been at regionals before, and then me and Pram were just like, let's just get rid of DC. And he's like, exactly. He's like, let's just ban DCE. He's like, Night March, all these other decks that I'm using to like farm free wins of regionals or whatever else he does, is all just comes down to DCE is busted. And if you can't keep up with DCE, or if you can keep up with DCE, more than likely you have some form of acceleration. Blacksmith, Blastoise, X card that's like insanely busted. It's probably an Expanded as well. Dark Patch, whatever what have you. It's all about Expanded being a problem. Too many cards in it. DCE runs everything.
So you would say Expanded is the problem. DCE is the captain of the problems.
No. The captain of the problem is Zoroark. I'm with him on. I understand his points and I support them of why DC is toxic. Will it ever get touched? Absolutely not. Okay. The game's far too ingrained into the system of how every card works. So if you guys are viewers and you've played like League of Legends before, Flash is built into the game, and they thought about Flash while creating the kits of every single champion that's ever been created in the game since the creation of it. And that's pretty much where DCE lies, is that logically Flash is stupid and shouldn't be in a summoner spell. However, it's there, so we need to like make sure that every other like champion's kit can accommodate for it, or needs it like as the escape tool. And DCE is kind of like that Flash to me. So it's so ingrained that it's never gonna move away. But however, like there's so many justified reasons why it shouldn't be in the game.
I don't want to go off on a huge League of Legends tangent, but
sure.
Flash is actually intentionally broken. They know it's too good, but it makes games more fun to watch, and they want that. So they're like, we want this. We're just going to be careful with everything. So, James, what are you thinking?
So I want to immediately respond to that point, and that's a reason why I think DCE will never go away. Like one of the primary ones is the variance that double colorless energy creates is necessary for the game to survive. Something that I've been a proponent for also on why double colorless energy won't ever leave is so many games come down to when both players are evenly matched in decks or evenly matched in skills. A lot of the game just comes down to who whiffs the DCE first. And that variance is necessary for a game to survive, because if the best player wins every single time, eventually the lesser players end up not being interested in the game anymore. If they don't have the drive to push themselves to the limit, then they just lose interest entirely, and then a game dies. So I definitely think that that's a giant thing, is that double colorless energy not only adds to the variance of the game, which is a necessary evil to the game, and while I think that there are other ways to create that variance that are better for the game, it handles that role well. In addition to, double colorless energy speeds up games inherently to make sure that games don't turn out to be long drawn out. Like things. And while I personally believe that the longer a game goes, the more decisions are made, which means there's more opportunities for mistakes, which makes a game more skillful. People don't want to sit there and play a single game of Pokemon that lasts an hour and a half. We've had formats like this in the past when EXs weren't legal or GXs weren't legal at all. And so every Pokemon was a single prize. During 2008, the rules were best of 140 minutes, and so many games still went to time. Like, that was a gigantic deal, and people hated that. Like, I loved it because, again, the longer the game, and there were no unintentional draws at that point either. So I felt like that balanced that out so that even if a game still went to time after 40 minutes, it was fine. But people want to just, like, get a game in and then play another game and then play another game and then play another game. That even if they're losing more games, they'd rather play more games. And I feel like that's a necessary part of double colorless energy as well. But I just feel like both of those things are very important to the game at this point, and I definitely feel like it just is a necessary evil. If it were to be banned and expanded, I think that you would see energy acceleration decks like Blastoise, you would see things, but you would also, in expanded, already built into expanded is the type of lock decks. And in the formats where we did not have double colorless energy, you would see energy acceleration decks, and then you would also see lock decks, and then these lock decks would be able to spread damage. These lock decks would be able to do other things that the energy acceleration decks that would just build a big guy and then blow something up, like Blacephalon or Vikaray or something like that, similar to those. It still creates a varied format, but the decks themselves don't have room to make your opponent not play the game. What ends up happening is you have several different types of decks, but while one of them might be a lock deck, it isn't like a hard lock like the Seismitoad Zoroark deck that we have now that just makes you literally unable to do anything because they have access to everything in their deck to stop whatever you're doing at any given point. You'd have decks like Garbodor, like Parallel City Garbotoxin is going to hard counter all of these energy acceleration decks that rely on a big setup of board where you have to set up a Pokemon, then set up a bunch of basic energy in some way, set up an attacker. Like, that's already built into the game. And I feel like if DCE leaves, then you just have a little bit slower of a game, and there's still a breadth of decks that's available. And even more cards become competitively viable when they don't just get run over by these block decks that have room for everything in the world, and these aggro decks like Night March or things like that that just inherently destroy you immediately.
So does Zoroark in expanded, is it still the best deck in format if it loses DCE?
Not in its current form. Not at all.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I think that Zoroark remains a competitively viable card. You would see some type of Zoroark variant that utilizes dark energies and dark patch and things like that, where you would like create a big board and then Skyfield, because Zoroark, regardless of if double colorless energy exists, is an extremely powerful card. Able to set up a board that draws 8 cards, like especially in expanded, if we ban DC and execute stays for free, like that is an extreme consistency boost that just lets you make big KOs each turn. But you wouldn't see anything similar to the Zoroark control decks that we've seen for so long now, that literally just have so much room for all of these one-of supporters that just like make your life miserable every single turn.
Yeah, that's why I'm a strong advocate for the banning of Zoroark instead of the banning of DCE. I think the banning of DCE is just a hilarious meme. And all the stuff that we're talking about on Verbank and like all the trashy copy and pastes that I use personally is just all in good fun. However, Zoroark is like legitimately needs to go because it does too much for what feels like zero cost. Like when you have Egg, it feels like no cost. And then once Team DDG figured out that ruling that you can just draw into your fossil, trade it away, and then use this ability, you'll never be able to deck out. It's like they unlocked a whole new world of ridiculous like supporter looping with Lucamine. And so they're like, oh, okay, at no point in the game against Zoro Control do I feel like I automatically won. Like I need to be playing a deck where I just zero thinking, I vomit basic energy onto the board, and I'm untouched by Seismitoad X, Silent Lab, or any of like the 6 broken supporters that Zoroark gets to use every turn while drawing 6, 7, was it 9 cards total potentially? And the constant fluctuation of power that they get to have, and then that pack behind N, which in itself is already like incredible D snowball card, but it's really just like Lusamine and every other strong supporter that they have access to, rolled into like one giant compilation of I really can't beat this deck when a good player pilots it.
Right.
And like that's what I thought. Zoroark was gonna murder Zoroark Control this weekend, bro. Like I honestly I was like, all right, so this tournament's gonna come down to either Zoroark win or Pendy wins this, and I said this all throughout day one. So like when I looked at the top tables, I was like, hey, look, like Joe Rudiger, Azul, a couple of other people that are playing Zoroark Control are up there, but I was like, but Pendy's skill level as a player, I've played against him since I literally started the game. Like my first couple city championships, we were playing against him, and like this dude, he's like such a good player. Like he'll be able to like push this out, and get wins that where I think like normally no one should be able to beat, and then he does it. He does it on stream. He beats Groudon. like just these ridiculous things he does with this deck is just because item lock is broken. Every card in that deck, there's like 8 or 9 cards that when you look at it, you're like, I could see that getting banned, and like you don't even like feel dumb for saying, or like you look at the deck and you're like, that's kind of that's absurd, and the reason it's all a problem is because of the consistency of Zoroark,
right? And
you can't have that with any other card. If you play Octillery, it stops at 5, like you're done, you're chilling for your turn. Zoroark got like this big of a hand, and then they end themselves and they're like, oh, let me sip straight away these eggs. I'll get rid of these extra nothings in my hand. I'll never be able to use this the whole game, so I'm just gonna keep trading away. So,
let's move into standard. In standard, Zoroark doesn't feel like the same issue. I mean, expanded just has so many issues, and then Zoroark can just capitalize on most of them. In standard, if we're looking at DCE, what would a DCE ban do in standard?
I think that it would open up. It would slow the game down. But current standard doesn't really have anything that is making like DCE with Zoroark is always just really, really, really good, and the removal of that from the format definitely would change things.
Right.
I don't think like why my post wasn't, hey, let's ban DCE right now, we have to, is that it currently in standard, there's not really anything that busted that you're doing with DCE. Like in the past, there's been like Seismitoad X, Night March, like the Mewtwo Wars of 2012, like Garchomp level X, like it ends up being that eventually some DCE deck is just the clear best deck in format. Right now in standard, I don't feel like Zoroark is the best deck in the format. I feel like it's strong, but because there is no way to get your special energy back currently in standard, beyond a Ringaroo, I feel like it's not in a place where it is too strong currently, and I think that that's part of why people took my post the wrong way, is they're looking at standard and they're like, well, I mean, at the same time, DCE is still in most of the top decks. If you take a look at Virginia Regionals, DCE is in the winning deck, and most of them that weren't Blacephalon.
One Harrogate, or whatever it's called.
Those are Gyarados?
Yeah. And while I feel like it will continue to be up there, I don't think that it is producing a problem in the game in standard currently. It's just a part of the game, kind of like we were talking about earlier. And that's my opinion on standard.
And so here's what I like about DCE. It gives the game designers options, because they can say they can make an attack a little bit better than 2 energy attachments for an energy that you can only use 4 times, or you can only play 4 of. I think it opens up a lot of design options for the game, but it can be pretty difficult to balance I think it can be pretty difficult to balance properly, and obviously that's been an issue recently. What do you think about that?
So with the same logic, you can just apply that to the entire expanded format. Like you're creating cards for Sun and Moon on that are never meant to be played with X and Y cards.
Right.
And that I don't think the R&D department themselves realized they create. Like, did they think Credillia was going to evolve straight from a Ditto Prism when they made Ditto Prism? I'm pretty sure they didn't.
But they're
just like,
they're making
that's yeah.
For Japan's standard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're banning maxis.
Right.
And like they're doing all kinds of other bans because they haven't been introduced like to, I don't know, like just the toxicity that that we're all have to put up with expanded and
True.
EU and all them, like in our group chats, I was like, "Hey, what's the play for expanded?" They all just laugh at me. They're like, "Yo, we're playing standard. You're being a child.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have to deal with that." And I was like, "Oh, thanks, great. I guess we'll just try and take our time and see how anyone can come up with beating this crazy deck for regionals." And everyone's like, "Oh, we got this Zoroark, Ray, whatever, what else?" And Penny's like, "No, I'm fine. I'll take my third. Thanks for the third regional. I'll cash in, baby.
This is fine.
Another
thanks.
$5 grand." Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, expanded needs to go.
Yeah.
And if expand doesn't need to go, then the ban list needs to add 4 or 5 more cards to it. And then just DCE is just one of the cards that can be talked about on the list. And having the versatility to being able to attack, and I think like I'm gonna jump around with thoughts because there's so many things going on with this game right now. However, I think it comes down to everyone's argument against it is DC's. There's a few arguments that people are having. DC's been around for forever. I think James talked to that it's always been strong since 2010, and we've always had to deal with it. And why is it a problem now? The reason it's a problem now is because every broken card in the format that uses DCE is finally coming to light in a whole nother world because of Quaking Punch and Rite of Speeding, or some weenie deck that has one prizers that hit for like 190, like 180 on turn 2. And the fact that we get like these absurdly powerful, strong supporters through Zoroark, even like bro, we have Faba, and we're complaining about DCE. That's how busted DCE is, and how stupid Zoroark is as a card. Like they're like, oh, like people in Burbank, they're like, just playing Hand Hammer or Faba. There's so many easier ways to counter it. Like just play Circuitry, and I'm like, congratulations, I just got decked out. Whatever the response is, Pendy was even in the chat with me. Like when someone made a post, they're just like, "Oh, it's so easy to counter Zoroark control," and I'm just like, I can't think of one. I can't think of one that they can't just pro read and be like, let's go and add this in here. I thought Bees was a good win for them, and then Connor was like, "Oh no, they played Girafarig, and they just removed my Pokemon." And I was like, "Oh, that does sound horrible for you." And then and like. They'll get Girafarig and Faba'd in the same turn.
Yeah.
So you lose your DCE, and then they use their DCE to remove your boys, and then you're like, I can't watch out your Girafarig. I'm pretty sure you just win here. Because Penny spanked Connor in the finals. Like they basically sat down and we were playing like a game of Cube and like Cube and Pokemon, and then I looked back up and I was like, oh hey look, Penny won. Oh, like this is great.
Surprise. So, yeah.
Expanded needs help.
For sure.
Yeah, I've always been a giant fan of Expanded. I love the fact that there is an eternal format in Pokemon now. I think it is very cool because I do think that there should be options for playing. And I'm kind of jumping around too, but just kind of like responding to what Russ was saying. I think that it's important for a card game to have multiple formats available to it, to give people options. The problem, there's been a lot of problems with Expanded in general that are just now coming to light because I feel like Expanded has more of a light shown on it now than it ever has before. I think that the fact that... To
piggyback on that, James, the people who were running Zoro Control and they ran it in Portland were literally posting online, tweeting, whatever you want on Facebook. If you actually follow the players themselves, they're like, we're playing this so we can get it banned because it's broken.
Yeah.
Like this deck is not fair. Nothing about it is fair, and it's still busted, and we're going to keep showing that. And so when we're playing it again at wherever we just were. We're in Anaheim. I walked over to Pram. Everyone's the HG table. Half of them, don't really converse with each other. And so everyone's just keeping their deck secret. Going all crazy. And I walk over, I give Pram a hug, and I was like, "What we on?" And Pendy looks at me. He goes, "The most degenerate deck I have ever played in my life." And then he proceeds to win the regionals.
Yeah.
and like. when the pilot and the creators of the deck go, this shouldn't be a thing, and I'm gonna keep playing it until they touch it. Something needs to be done with the whole format.
Yeah.
Not just picking up a couple cards. So.
Yeah, because like I just feel like the expanded in general not having any kind of representation above a regional, often not having very many league cups. Like if you look at the amount of league cups that have been expanded since league cups were created versus the number of league cups that have been standard, the numbers are staggeringly in standard's favor.
Yeah. It's like 80% here.
Yeah, and I mean, we've never had an expanded League Cup in Kentucky, like, or even in the Ohio area, Indiana area, very few of them are expanded. And while I feel like a lot of the justification for that is that players don't want to play expanded, I think that players previously haven't wanted to play expanded at times, even when it was fine, because they didn't have enough exposure to it. There's no expanded portion of Worlds. There's no expanded portion of or an expanded internationals. There's no, like, you can just ignore that expanded exists and still fairly easily get your Worlds invite most years. Like, so I just feel like if we want expanded to be a thing, we need to push for it to be a thing. Also, I'm perfectly fine with banning several cards and expanded to keep it healthy. Like, I don't think it's absurd to have 11 cards banned out of 3 12-set blocks of Pokemon and literal thousands upon thousands of cards legal. There's gonna be combinations that shouldn't be allowed. And I think that when you have anything like if you look at Magic's ban list, Magic has thousands upon thousands of cards legal in Modern, and they have a ban list of like 45 cards. That's fine, and their Modern format, people like it or they don't like it, and at times it's better or worse because it's a card game. But at the end of the day, like, it's fine to have all these cards banned if they are doing something wrong with the game. But it's okay to have a list that large when you have a card pool this large. So I just think that if we're gonna have expanded be a format, then we need to push for it to actually be there needs to be a reason that expanded exists. Like, there should be, maybe not how it used to be when like day 1 was standard and day 2 was expanded or anything like that, but there should be some type of either an overhaul of the organized play system, which I'm also working on an article for that I want to release soon.
Hey,
so
this means I'm fired.
I'm sure that will go over well as well, seeing how this went over when I wasn't even trying to do anything with this article. But I do think that organized play as a whole just needs to be overhauled. And I think that if we're going to have a second format, it needs to – people need a reason to play expanded, and it needs to be catered to throughout the year, not just once a year. Be like, all right, well, here's these 4 cards that are banned. Good luck. Zoroark's still legal. So even it can't do these 4 broken things, but we're going to give it like more tools by the time Christmas comes so that it does these different broken things. So have fun, guys. Like,
well, I think Pokemon's hiring a player coordinator, so.
Oh yeah, that's for organized play. Yeah. But like on that note, like when they don't want to add stuff to the ban list, they're just restricting their ability to create more creative and really cool cards. From coming out, because I honestly think like Prism is one of the best ideas I've ever seen, like come out of the R&D department. It's just so ridiculously good. Like Ditto Prism is just one of the best cards ever created, in terms of like balance, strength, weaknesses, overall utility, versatility towards like every single deck. But then like when you don't regulate a format with such a large card pool, you get the monstrosity that we have now. And I can tell you, everyone playing this weekend, no one was enjoying it. They were just kind of going through motions. I think a few people enjoyed themselves, like the guy who ran Exodia, who made top 4. I believe it's Lee Bowie. Sorry if I mispronounced your name, bro. I said what's up to him like a couple times, but he was literally just like, "Oh, I got combo. They lost." It was like red card delinquent, swing for 120 with Zoroark, and it was just he just repeated the process over and over again. If he drew out of it, he just did it again the next turn, and like it was just stuff like that. I just feel like the interactions were hardly happening, and if I played T-Tar, and when I drew out of like end to 2 and I ripped a chorus against their like Zoroark Arbiter and I knocked out the Zoroark, they're like, "Oh, I guess I lose." And I was like, "Hey, look, I'm like one of the decks that can answer this stupid combo," and it's oppressive. It really is. Zoroark is just it took over. As soon as it got released, it just took over expanding, and it's never given up on that. And the only reason we've had different kind of finals is because in the finals were decks that could beat Zoroark. Period.
Yep.
That was it. There's never been another time when they couldn't. And even for Treb, like, you guys were like, oh, this is like somewhat of a decent matchup, right? But it was never like, oh, hard win.
No, I can tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and even then, like, the Treb had to be super teched for Zoroark.
Yep.
When you have, like,
Importer.
It's just, yeah, Importer, the quad enhanced hammer, the, like, all this different stuff, and then, like, you might get there, or, like, the Zoroark player can just draw fine and then beat you, because they are running the most consistent Pokemon engine, at least in a long, long time. I'm not going to, off the top, say it's the most consistent engine ever, but, I mean, when you're drawing 8 cards... People are going to yell at you and be like, Claydol, what about Claydol? Oh, people have been messaging me all week, like they're going to freak out when you do. This week has been great. Like, literally the best thing ever.
I got one last question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think this is mainly for James. I don't think Russ was playing at this point. Were you playing Russ when DCE was not a thing?
Nope.
Okay, so James, tell us a story. What special energies were there? What was it like when there was no DCE?
All right, so the non-DCE years were 2004 through 2009.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
that's big.
and yep, and they were the first years of Nintendo taking over organized play from Wizards of the Coast.
Right.
So like from that perspective, you're taking a look at, there were so many different decks in all of those formats. Like, other than like 2008 was very, very specifically one deck that was better than everything. That was Guardy. Guardy was just like the boogeyman for the entire year almost. So that year was a different story. But other than that, each of those years saw a lot of play. And like 2007 was a year where each format, like in a card game, is going to have problems regardless. That year, literally, like every set that came out, everything about the game changed. Like the decks that you played at Cities one year, like that year, weren't good by states. You were playing different decks, and then like by Nats, it was a totally different story, and then by Worlds, like it was so cool. But like a big part of Double Colorless Energy is the laziness that goes into it. When you take that out, there's so many special energies from that era and just in general that you can create to give decks different tools to still have energy acceleration under certain conditions. Double Rainbow Energy was a big part of those years, and that was one that said that you can't attach it to a basic and you can't attach it to an EX. So the equivalent of, it has to be like an evolved non-GX Pokemon, and it would provide 2 Rainbow Energy, but you also did 10 less damage. So the numbers were a lot smaller back then too. So that was a bit more of a drawback than just saying, oh, it does 10 less damage now, but you're still doing 200. Like you weren't doing that back then.
Right.
But there was that. There was Scramble Energy, which said that it had to be attached to an evolved Pokemon that wasn't an EX. And it provided a colorless energy unless you were behind in prizes. And if you were behind in prizes, it provided 3 Rainbow Energy. So it provided a lot of interplay where you had to play around, like going ahead at certain points of the game to make sure that it didn't turn on your opponent's Scramble Energies. Right. And that was a really, really cool thing, that you would sometimes not take prizes, or you would need to spread damage here first and then take the prize, because then it was okay to get scrambled back.
That's cool.
And so that was really, really cool. And it promoted things like, so the EX decks would be the decks that had energy acceleration. And so they were the hard-hitting, like, get a bunch of basic energy out and do things like that typically. But then you had these like anti-meta, like evolved non-EX decks that would like try and counter those, and they would have access to things like Double Rainbow Energy and Scramble Energy, and do these like different things where they would go down in prizes and they would try to spread a bunch of damage, or they would try and turn off your abilities or things like that. And it just created a lot of different metagames, and typing was so much more relevant back then than it is now. Like, now you're just kind of like looking for the best DCE attacker. Like typically when you like start looking at a format, like after Worlds, what was the most thing that was played? It was Zoroark, because everyone had already been playing with Zoroark. And like Buzzwole, like Russ was mentioning, is only really good and expanded specifically because it beats Zoroark, like, or tries to.
It doesn't anymore.
Yeah, I don't think it does anymore.
Take prizes. Why would they ever do that? Just deck you out, bro.
Exactly. You get Articuno, like it's so insane. But like, typing is so much more relevant when you're having to play basic energy, and that's what happened during those years. Is like you would be able to play cards that are not playable whatsoever, but because they counter the type that your opponent is going to be playing and doing double damage, and you could like count on that. That was a giant thing. You'd see these decks with like 5 to 6 different 2/2 stage 1 lines that just like would counter specific matchups, and that was just really, really cool to see. And it's not something that you really see anymore. Just because it doesn't matter that much. You're just looking for the hardest hitting thing. You're trying to just get people like, and it's sad that that's not a part of the game anymore. But there's just so much room to make different special energies with different conditions if you take double colorless out of the game and kind of make the game similar to that again.
Right. All right. Well, very cool. Let's do closing thoughts and shout outs. Russ, why don't you start?
It expanded, ban Zoroark, ban Archies, ban Maxies, and I had one more on the list. Forgot. I think it was D-Valley too. It's a little imbalanced.
Yeah.
Eggs can kind of go, depending on how
if you're being a Zoroark,
next format kind of is feeling. However, I'd always start with Archies, Maxies, and Zoroark. And then I'm pretty sure we can release Hex Maniac off the list once we do that, and then we can absolutely release Archeops once we ban Maxies.
Right.
And then D-Valley get to go because it could be a strong. Because I'm pretty sure everyone's argument behind if you ban Zoroark, everything else is going to become busted. Is if I take away Archies, which is also an inherently busted card, as well as Maxies, and I took away Trav's ability to just go D-Valley and then copy whatever. I mean, you can use Draft Rig for free. That's how D-Valley is busted. Why not throw that in Zorotoad? And
did you get it back?
Yeah, exactly. You can do whatever you want. You can discard it early, you can trade it away early. And Expanded will get fixed, and the format will get a lot healthier again. Closing thoughts is, please fix Expanded. There's too many regionals coming up. There's a Puka please thing where I'm like going around and keep asking Puka, and I feel bad because some of the judges and TOs take it seriously.
Yeah.
And they message me and they're like, you know, he's not part of the R&D department. Like, he's not part of this department, blah. And I was like, I'm aware. It's a joke.
I've done it before.
Welcome to the internet.
Yeah. And James.
All right. So my closing thoughts are, I think if we ban double colorless energy, the game automatically becomes a more interesting place. No one can tell me I'm wrong about that. If you ban double colorless energy and just double colorless energy, the game immediately becomes a much more interesting place, at least while we figure out what's going on with the current card pool. I do think that Archies and Maxies both need to go regardless, just because they are going to, just like Forest of Giant Plants, they are going to continue restricting card design in those types for as long as they're legal and expanded, because you get things like the Amistar and Kabutops that are coming out that are going to literally ban Maxies that prompted Japan to ban Maxies before they were even released. I think that those cards need to go. If you ban DCE, if you just ban those 3 cards, I think that things are good. I'm not sure about unbanning Archeops just because you can evolve into it from Ditto. I don't think that would bust the game, but I know that that's not going to feel good either.
Just errata it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that should work that way regardless, like you were saying earlier.
Sorry, Lucami needs to get banned. That was also on the list. Not banned. You can just errata it where it can grab itself.
Just get it to not grab itself. Like, it's so silly that Lucami can do that. But I just think that double colorless energy is also, in a way, going to continue to restrict card design moving forward. You can't print these cards that literally run the game for the length of their legality by printing a card that is just a little too good when double colorless energy exists, like Mewtwo, Garchomp, Seismitoad, Zoroark, things like that. I want to close off everything by saying that I didn't intend for this to become what it has this week when I posted my opinion piece on Sunday. I have greatly enjoyed the memery. It's been very, very fun. watching everything in Burbank unfold, there's so many posts of people saying that all these whiners wanting DCE to get banned. No one is posting that. Like, I posted that if DC didn't exist, the game would be a better place. But we aren't getting a bunch of posts saying, hey, ban DCE or we're not going to Pokemon events. You're just getting a bunch of people saying, man, all those people that want DCE banned and are complaining about it all over the place are bad and they need to get good.
You need to get good, dude.
Yeah, one day, man, I'll get good.
I know. I saw. Oh, that was so funny when they were like, "Did they go 0-3 drop or whatever?" Like, one day I'll make it past the 3rd round.
Yeah. The problem is you, bro. You need to learn how to adapt.
And then he was like explaining. He was explaining to you like, you just have to build your deck and practice this many hours a day. Like, that's my favorite thing, dude. When people are explaining something to someone who knows better than them, that I always find that so funny.
Did you see my thank you for the unsolicited lesson? Thanks so much, bro. I appreciate it.
Like, one day, guys, one day I'll make it past the 3rd round of a tournament, and then finally I'll do well. But...
I mean, if people don't agree with the whole DCE kind of shows off poor card design and everything, think of how many times you read a card when it was just created and dropped, and you go, man, if that was just X energy plus DCE instead of 2 of that energy plus 1 colorless, this card be so strong. That's the logic. It's ingrained into the system where you can't even fight it until you recognize it. You have to acknowledge the problem before we can all move together to fix it and pass the law.
But now we can't even say that's good because Zoroark. So it's like.
When I look at something, I was like, how can they deck me out when I play this card?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Would you guys? Do you guys give shoutouts? Shoutouts.
Yeah. Flipside Gaming, someone's PC. Thanks to everyone on the West Coast who said hi to me. You guys give handshakes and hugs and daps so much different than everyone on the East Coast. So sometimes if we did the awkward little hi, how are you? Peace out, man. Half hug kind of thing. Sorry about that.
My favorite.
Yeah, I hate it. East Coast, certain people want hugs. I got everyone memorized. Go to the West Coast and they're like, all right, bro, they just get one of these. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna walk away. It's gonna be.
I'm getting into fist bumps recently.
Ooh.
I want to shout out Team TNLG. Now repping them, gonna be repping the TNLG gear. Maybe repping some hashtag Basic Energy Gang gear come Dallas.
Good,
so. Check out the Next Level Games in Tennessee, and gonna see you all at Dallas. I want to shout out everyone. Keep winning, Jimmy Pendarvis. Please just keep winning with DCE decks. Let's get something done. Let's see if we can change the game. So I'll see everybody at Dallas.
All right, peace out.
Shout out to all my patrons, especially my Master and Ultra patrons, starting with the Master, Jeremy Owings, Caleb Vance, Dan Nelson, Impulse Gaming, and Pokestats, and Ultra, Sarah Beckwith, Paul Semenko, John Gilman, Brian Chan, Tyler Johansson, and Alex Haney. And especially, thanks obviously to my Great and Basics as well. You guys have really, really helped me out, especially in this career transition. I just pulled the money from Patreon, and it was super, super helpful. Thank you guys so much. This video is for y'all.